Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Tampa Bay Real Producers Podcast. This is the podcast that is powered by Top Producers Nation, and it is for real producers, by real producers, and with none other than Tampa Bay's real producers. Today we actually have a special guest. If you followed our program, you probably know that we interview a lot of the top producing retail real estate agents throughout the Tampa Bay market, as well as our partner series with the various vendor partners that support our platform with Tampa Bay Real Producers. But today we have something a little different with Morgan Ehrenzeller. How you doing, Morgan?
Hey, Don. I'm good. Thanks for having me.
It's good to have you here, Morgan. So if you don't know who Morgan is, we brought him on the show today because Morgan is a real estate investor. And personally, I've always had a lot of interest in building up a real estate investment portfolio. We've had a couple of different agents even on this show that have talked about their passions for building up a real estate portfolio, whether it be through short-term rentals, long-term rentals, even fix and flip programs. But, Morgan has a really cool story that we're going to dive into about at a young age, what he did to build up a portfolio now with over, 39 units that he currently owns, with another 12 that are under contract. So right around 50 units that he's controlling at 26 years old. So pretty impressive, which is good to see. And let's talk a little bit about that. So Morgan, why don't we start with a little bit more about just your background. So I know you're not from this market. You're from PA. We were talking offline here. And so why don't we start there just with how you got yourself even interested in real estate investing, what your background was like, and then, of course, what brought you down here to the Florida Tampa Bay market.
Yeah, that's a great question. So a little bit about my background. I'm from a very small town in Pennsylvania, McAllisterville, PA. It's pretty rural area. I graduated with maybe 70 kids in my high school. We actually didn't even have a middle school. It was 7 through 12. So came from a very, very small background. And then really what got me into real estate was my grandmother. She had a duplex, and the whole time growing up, she didn't know how to manage it correctly. My grandfather, he was a carpenter. My dad, he's a carpenter. But they're carpenters. They're not
Property managers, huh?
They're service people to guys in real estate like us. Mm-hmm. So they don't know the business side of actual real estate. They know how to be contractors. So growing up constantly, she was getting screwed over by tenants who weren't paying, destroying the properties, stuff like that. So my parents always had a bad taste in it. So did my family, because they didn't know how to manage it properly. And what really got me started was I came into a chunk of money at a very young age. I created a software company at 14, and I didn't know what to do with all this money. Now, my parents, they didn't have a business at all. I don't come from a wealthy family at all. So I didn't want to take my parents' advice on what to do with all this money that I was getting. Mm-hmm. So I immediately identified every wealthy or rich person I knew was involved in real estate, some way, shape, or form. Mm-hmm. So I recognized that at a very, very young age, and I was like, okay, I need to dive deeper into this. I need to get into this game one way or another. So that's what really led me into real estate was that, because I knew wealthy people and rich people were all in it, but I didn't know why or anything about it.
Yeah. We were talking off camera about how we both read Rich Dad, Poor Dad years ago, and that was, at least I know for me, a spark to be able to really start looking at real estate investing as a vehicle. And I think even in that book, it talks about how more people most of the millionaires today in America have, like you said, have a tie to real estate in some capacity. It's like the industry that by a percentage wise generates more millionaires than any other, right?
Right.
So that does make a lot of sense. Real quick, the software business that you had, was that just something you came up with at 14? You were tinkering with some software? Were you always like a computer genius, or how did that all shake out?
Yeah, so software and coding and stuff like that just always interested me at a young age. I didn't have anything like that in my high school. Obviously, I didn't have a middle school, no classes like that. So just computers sparked my age at a young age in technology. Mm-hmm. So I taught myself some coding and stuff like that, and then I would hire offshore VAs to code the whole platform out.
Nice.
Almost like the full stack of everything. And then from there, I was basically the reseller and just managing sales, customer service, front end, everything.
What was the software providing?
So a lot of parents used it to monitor their children's and business owners to monitor employees to make sure, they're not slacking off, efficiencies, stuff like that.
Like a screen share or screen monitoring type thing.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. So we did that. And yeah, did that and made
You had a successful exit, it sounds like.
Yeah.
So you started it at 14 and sold it at 17, 18?
Yeah, right around that time frame, right before I went to college. I sold it because I wanted to have the college experience.
Yeah.
And from
Not
there,
most college students had just sold a, I don't know what you got as your payout, but I'm sure that was probably different than most college students' experiences, right?
Yeah, and it allowed me because my parents really weren't in a financial situation to put me in college or anything like that. So I was able to put myself through college, pay for everything.
Where'd you go to school?
Bloomsburg University.
Okay.
And the thing that really took that vertical was, since I was so young and under 18, PayPal and like all the third party, the financial processors, they kept limiting my accounts because I wasn't an adult.
Right.
So I was trying to pivot as a young entrepreneur. How do I keep accepting payments? But 70-80% of my payments came from PayPal. So you just basically chop me off at the chest, limiting that. So then that's when I discovered cryptocurrency. So then I took my software profits as well, dumped that into Bitcoin at the time. Bitcoin was $30-$50. And
That's been a pretty good investment for you.
Yeah, I made a few good decisions at a young age, so to say. So that really took it vertical. And then I had some extra money, bought a duplex at 17. And then I went through college, didn't really do anything with it. And then after college, when I graduated in 2020, was when I really started buckling down in the real estate game.
What was your major at school?
I had a bachelor's in marketing and a minor in business management.
Okay. So when you were in school, was your mindset always that you were going to build up this real estate portfolio? Was that the goal?
It was. So like in my free time, a lot of my free time, I was watching podcasts. A big one was Clayton Morris at the time. He does a lot of like more world views now, but he has a lot of really good stuff that I think I discovered the Burr method when I was like 18 or 19. When I was in my room at college, I seen it. And then like that moment, as soon as I saw that, like it clicked, I was like, holy cow, like this has a lot of potential. So like as soon as that hit, I just started.
There's a great book too. I mean, there's more than one, but there's a lot of great books on the whole Burr method philosophy. If you're not familiar, the Burr method stands for buy, rehab, rent, refinance, right? Did I do that correctly?
Repeat.
And repeat. That's right. I forgot the last R, repeat in there. So that's what the Burr method stands for. I know Bigger Pockets has a whole content section just based on different strategies revolving around the Burr method, for sure. So you had this intent, right, of building up this portfolio. It seems like you still continue to educate yourself a lot during these college years. Graduated school. How did you make your way down here to Tampa? I know that we were talking off camera. A lot of your properties are all over the country, right? So you have a couple here in Tampa Bay, I know, and then you have Pennsylvania. I think you mentioned Illinois. I think you mentioned one in Jacksonville. So, I mean, these properties are not just all centrally located, right, in one place. They're spread out all over the country, which I'm sure also brings some different elements of challenges to it, to have so many different, markets to have to manage in and figure out whether you're managing these yourself or not. So we'll dive into that. But what got you into this market?
This market particularly. So when I graduated college, I was trying to obviously keep developing my real estate career, and the banks kept shutting me down. You don't have job history, you don't have tax returns. Like, we're not going to give this 22-year-old kid hundreds of thousands of dollars to go play.
These banks are always trying to hold us down, aren't they?
Yep. So that I was like, okay, I need to get a job. Like, I need to, so I can keep growing my portfolio. So I landed a job down in Tampa on Harbor Island, actually.
Okay.
So that was the initial reason for the move. Now, granted, I did always, right after college, I went to move to Miami. So I always had that mindset where I wanted to get out of my hometown in that area because it's so small, and there's not really a mentor, so to say, or mentors or big networking events, stuff like that. So I recognized on a professional level, if I want to keep developing and growing my skill sets, I need to get out of this area. So one, the job. Two, I recognize I need to get into a bigger city to keep developing my professional skills.
What was the job?
I worked for a market research company. It was in sales.
Which is another one of those important qualities that I think any entrepreneur should develop, right? Is the importance of sales skills.
100%, because no matter what in life, you're always going to be selling yourself, whether you're
Totally.
selling yourself to a girlfriend, a partner, girlfriend's parents, fellow investor.
Or raising capital for hundreds of millions of dollars of real estate, right?
100%. So that's why I grip the sales so hard, because I recognize everyone should know sales, and
Totally.
you're going to use it no matter what throughout your entire life, whether if you're selling a product or not.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about your criteria, Morgan. So your first property was a duplex, you
Correct.
said?
Yep.
And so as you've built up to this 50 units now that you're about to close on, you said you have 12 under contract now, so it'll be right at 50, it looks like, once those close. So like, tell us a little bit about just how you think about deals. You know, like what are you looking for? Single family, multifamily, duplexes, triplexes. Is there a certain limit that you don't look for something bigger than X? Give a little bit of your thought parameters around what you're looking for in a deal.
Yeah. So I'm a big numbers junkie. That's all I care about, numbers. So generally, a lot of my stuff is smaller. I think that's how a lot of people start out. I think personally, that's how you should, fall down, trip, scrape your elbows, get back up, because you learn a lot of extremely valuable lessons in that, from contracting, project management, everything after property management. You learn a lot and develop the skills and resources and everything needed to continue scaling. So like in single families, what I basically do just as a quick glance is, okay, what's the after repair value? Okay, I want to be in it no more than 50, 55, maybe 60% max, all in purchase price, renovations, closing costs. Now that gives me, 40% insulation if the market drops. I have that insulation where I'm not losing money. That also gives me another exit where I can do the BRRRR if I need, because banks are right now lending refining 65, 70, 75%, depending on the market you're in. So I have that cap just for that in my back pocket in case I ever want to do or pull equity in the future.
Yep. Okay. So are you finding that this has been a more challenging market to find deals in that with that criteria?
I want to say yes, but I also want to say, I would say Tampa, my first year, I wasn't finding a lot of deals here, but also I recognize I don't have the infrastructure set up here like I do up in my hometown when I first started.
Yeah.
But now as I'm starting to make more connections, add tools to my tool belt and the resources, meet more people, it's definitely getting a lot easier now.
Do you find, Morgan, that when someone is, so your criteria I'm clear about, I've even had a lot of friends that are in the flipping world, and many of them will say 70% is their number, right? Which you're pretty close to. In your opinion, do you negotiate those deals or do you find those deals?
I find them. Nine times out of 10, I find them.
Okay. So it's not the sales skills necessarily that takes somebody who is maybe willing to sell at 10% or 10% under market, and you somehow show them numbers and convince them that you can get it down to blah blah blah. You're more looking. You find those people that are either ready to sell right now because they're off market property and they have a problem generally that they have to unload, right?
Yep.
What are some of your favorite kind of strategies or ways that you go about looking for off market property?
Yeah, that's a great point. So I would say, I'm not hard on that. You mentioned the 70%, like a lot of stuff creatively, I'll pay a little bit more for. But yeah, I look right now for a lot of creative finance stuff and structuring that way. That's where the sales also comes in handy. Trying to find those problems, those pain points, and then how can myself and my team, solve that for them.
For people who might not be aware of like what that means, creative financing, and most people I think in the real estate world, even real estate agents in my experience, just kind of think, what do you mean? Like financing is you get a loan, you get a mortgage, you deal with the banks, like that's financing, right?
Right.
A lot of people don't really know that in your space, which again is a space that I've spent some time in myself, many people never deal with the banks, right? In your world, right? They're almost every deal they do is through creative ways, creative strategies, other means. So do you have some kind of your favorite strategies that have worked well for you that you think you can share?
Yeah, as far as strategy to get them to open up to creative, or more of the deal structure itself?
Both.
So generally when I maybe try to pitch a creative solution or a seller finance or something like that, most people are familiar with banks, the traditional method of financing. So a lot of these sellers are, 40, 50, 60 years old. They've never heard of it either before. So generally I like to go and I like to ask the question up front, what are you planning to do with this money? Like, are you parking it in the bank, or what's the plan here?
Yep.
a lot of times they'll say, oh, I'm just parking it in the bank. So like I'll say, okay, how much interest is that giving you? 1, 2, 3%
Yep.
max. They're like, yeah, we're just going to keep it there. I was like, well, what if I offered you a creative solution, maybe where I could pay you 5, 6, 7, 8% interest, maybe tack on a little bit more on the tail end on the purchase price. So now your money's working a lot harder for you. You get a higher purchase price. Maybe depending on their situation, you're going to delay the capital gains. So now, you don't have to, you're not going to get hit with that capital gains right up front.
Yep.
So it's just a matter of really talking them through it and walking them through it and educating them. I would say educating them is a really big component of it.
Yep.
Because no one's going to do something that they don't know everything about. Not necessarily everything, but a good grasp on.
Yeah, and there's an element of building trust there too, right? Mm-hmm. Because if they don't trust you in some shape or form, they're going to be very turned off and hesitant about wanting to go down this route that they might not be that familiar with, right?
Yeah. One way how I overcome that too, now, granted, it's a little bit tougher at first, but now I can give them list of references.
Yeah.
Other ones where I paid out way early, maybe I refied it. They had a 10-year balloon. I paid them out in a year. So like a lot of times I'll give them a list of 10, 15 references. They have nothing but great things to say about me. So like that helps a lot too.
No, makes a lot of sense. So what Morgan just kind of shared there and role played is an example of owner financing is really what that is, right? So when you say creative financing, what percentage of your deals come through an owner financing strategy?
I would say right now, roughly 50%.
Okay.
I'm trying to get that even higher.
Okay. And then what do you think the other 50% represents?
Buying foreclosures, one market, some have bought outright. Granted, that's not always the best move, but certain situations.
Yep.
Yeah. But yeah, most of them 50s about creative right now, and the others are foreclosures, stuff like that.
And so when you buy a foreclosure, or do you do anything with like probate estate sales or anything regarding short sales or anything in that space?
Yeah.
Okay.
That was one of when I first graduated college in 2020. I just got back from spring break in Cancun. There was a foreclosure auction in my college town, and I was the only one that went and bidded on this property. I picked it up for $10K. Now I threw roughly 17K into it. And so I was in it roughly, we'll just say 30, 35 round numbers, closing costs, all that. And then after
these aren't the most beautiful properties in the world.
No, they are not beautiful by any means. But my dad was a contractor, so was my grandfather. So I was always around, holding the flashlight since I was like 9 years old, up on a roof at like 11. So I have a very good foundational skill set of buildings, not just from the outside in, but the inside out, which is extremely valuable because really contractors can't rip me off. I know what stuff costs. And
totally.
If I ever have a question, I call my dad.
That's awesome. It's good to have that experience behind you, because I think that's probably an element where people are a little fearful, right?
I see a lot of people get very nervous and scared to start because of that
totally.
element alone.
Yeah, that comes after getting a good deal first, right? Under contract, which I think psychologically, logically, people can see themselves finding people and putting things under contract that would be good deals from a monetary perspective. But then it's like, what's next, right? How do I rehab it? How do I actually know what to do in that space? And with your experience, I can see where you'd be a little bit more comfortable in that world. To go about buying foreclosures and all these other sides, not including the owner finance side, is that where your ability to raise private capital has come in? Is that generally what you're using to be able to purchase other properties?
Yeah. So on that one specifically, I still had money left over from my software company, all of that. So I got in that one after I did a burrow on that one. It was worth 126. So I cashed out. It was almost a 6-figure play. I was 22, 23 years old at that point. Real estate clicked. I was like, no other job is going to do this for me at 22, 23 years old to make $100K in 3-4 weeks.
Yep.
I'm not from a wealthy family. I don't have an Ivy League school degree. So that was a lot. And then after I got to about property 10, 12, 15 around there, I ran out of money. So then that's when I started pivoting more to raising money, whether if that's foreclosures, down payments. Now, like a lot of stuff I do creatively where I raise money is example, if I can talk to seller into 10, 20K down, something like that is pretty turnkey. I'll lock it up and then I'll go raise that 10, 20K down from private money.
And so the money you'd be raising in that example is not necessarily to purchase the property, but just to get the money back from your down payment.
Yeah, to get in. Or actually, I'm usually not even in it my own money. Like a lot of it's just all other people's money.
Right. Well, if you're using other people's money for the down payments, then that yeah,
basically
that makes sense.
An infinite return on my end as long as I perform.
Yeah, and then the other percentage then of the actual purchase price is then through the owner financing agreement.
Yes. Yep.
Okay, that makes sense. When you are in the capital raising world, right? I think that's another space that some people are a little bit intimidated by.
Yeah.
How do I go about, having those conversations? Who do I even talk to? Like, what type of portfolio do I need to even show to be able to entertain those conversations?
Right.
So, what has your experience been like in having those conversations? Raising private money and capital for deals like this. Can you share a little bit about that side of things for you?
Yeah. So I'm not a chaser. I don't chase people. I don't chase like anything. I attract. I don't go after.
Mm-hmm.
So I've just set up a lot of social media, just doing what I do. I think one of the best things you can do as a marketer is educate your audience, educate your market. So I think I have, a slight advantage because I'm so young. A lot of my friends, they're just graduating, getting professional jobs. They're seeing what I'm doing. Now they don't have a wife, they don't have kids, they don't have a family. So they essentially can take bigger risk right now.
Yep.
They're younger. So that attracts a lot of them, people I went to college with, people from my hometown, and just other people who just followed me on social media and see what I'm doing. And that, I feel, it builds trust over time. And then when it comes to closing them, so to say, set up the investor call. I like to learn more about their investment goals because if they're really short-term minded versus long-term, I already know this isn't going to work. So I don't really want to get involved with anyone who has a short-term plan in their head, so to say.
What does short-term look like to you? Anything less than a year?
That, and you're just looking to get rich quick.
Okay.
Like this is a long-term play.
Sure.
And I want to be with people who recognize that it's going to be a long-term play.
Yep. Most of your structured, offerings, I guess you would call them, with these private investors, what do those terms generally look like?
Yeah. So some of them, I'd say generally across the board, you could say, I mentioned earlier, I'll raise the money for the down payment.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll find the deal. I'll do the whole underwriting on it. Usually I don't touch anything where we make less than 100,000. So it has to be worth my time going into it. I'll literally do all the work. They provide the capital. So
let me slow you down for a second. So when you say minimum of 100,000, are you talking about on the exit side after you've rehabbed it on the resale, or are you talking about pulling out on the equity on the refi?
Yeah, equity or resale. As long as there's, equity, I mean, that'll convert into resale, whatever.
Yep.
So I'm a big equity guy. So generally,
but to pay them off, you have to be pulling that equity out.
Yes.
Is my point, right? So you're either selling the property or you're pulling the equity out so you can pay off your investors.
Correct.
Yep.
100% there. So we'll structure it something like if it's one partner 50-50, I'll find the deal. It's a home run. I literally do everything in the deal. They do nothing except provide capital. So say it's $20K down payment and $20K renovations. After we're done with it, we'll make $150K. So I'll run everything from construction, project management. They just provide the capital. And then after the renovations, everything, say 6 months, 8 months down the road, we'll refinance it and then we'll pay them back all their capital. Mm-hmm. Now we have the property, we'll have the bank account. Like I mentioned, all these people have long-term visions. So they want to keep, at this point, they trust me. And I'm outperforming their stocks, the S&P 500, their bonds. They keep
coming back for more, right?
They never seen returns that were 200 to 600% before in their life.
Right.
So, they're hooked.
Especially if you're paying them back that quickly.
Exactly.
You said between 6 to 8 months in some of these deals?
Usually, unless for God reason, something happens on the renovation or something where it's delayed a little bit longer.
Right.
And then 6 months too, because sometimes depending on the market and your banks want seasoning. So
right, that's what I'm about to say. Like generally, seasoning is going to be a longer process than that.
Yeah.
From what I know about it, it's generally going to be maybe 15 to 18 months on the minimum, right?
Yeah.
On some of those, depending on the asset, I guess. But if you buy it at the right prices, I guess that margin is there. As long as that depends on your ability to find good deals.
Yeah, 100%. So we'll refi, pay the investors back, and then at that point, you're like, what else am I going to do with this money? keep it in the bank earning 2%. So they're like, screw that. Like,
buy another one.
Let's plow it back in. Keep plowing it back in.
Yeah.
So as long as I perform on my end, I have a lifetime investor behind me.
It's awesome. So are these generally just private individuals?
Yep.
That have good net worth? Maybe they're doctors or whatever, lawyers that make good income, and they're just trying to do something by reinvesting their capital, right?
Yep.
Okay. And these generally are people that you said from your social media that just follow you and were friends with you and you had a relationship with in some way, shape, or form, or came across your stuff somewhere and then that kind of sparked their interest and that relationship got started.
So at first, there's a lot of friends, and now as I'm growing, it's becoming friends of friends, social media. So it's just expanding as you grow.
Totally.
First, it was small. Now
you might have some people reaching out to you from this. Who knows?
You never know.
Might be part of the reason why you're here, right, Morgan? So it's all good. Like I said, I know that there's a lot of top producing agents that not only have been on this show, but that get a chance to get exposed to our platform, who I think, many times are interested in investing in good deals. So
yeah,
you never really know how that's going to shake out. Good, man. So we just did a lot there. So what are you excited about now when you think about moving forward, your strategy, your plans for the rest of this year and beyond? Like, what does the next couple of years look like in your strategy and plan? What are you fired up about?
Yeah, so I'm really putting my heels into larger multifamily now. Now that I've built up, I know a lot of extremely wealthy people who have a lot of money to put into deals. So now that I got my network up, I have a lot of money behind me if the deal's right. So really I'm focused on big multifamily projects. Well, big depending on whose eyes you're looking in. Looking for stuff upwards of up to 25 million. Now granted, I'm not, just set on that. If I see a single family house where I can make 100, 200K and, it doesn't require that much time, I'm going to pick that up. I'm going to pick up those gold nuggets on the way because those are great net worth builders for me. And the investors who are with me from the beginning, I want to bring them with me through all the good stuff, not just in the beginning. So that's really what I'm focused on right now. I'm actively looking for the bigger stuff.
There's no real minimum, you would say.
That's what I'm saying earlier. I'm a numbers guy. I'm a numbers
as long as the
junkie.
numbers work.
Yeah.
But to clarify, because there are real estate agents who mostly would be following our platform, you're not just looking for stuff that's listed on the MLS.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah.
You don't want a bunch of agents sending you things based on, here's what it's selling for on the MLS, and you're just going to scoop it up as an investor. That's not your business, right?
Yeah, I deny probably 99% of the deals that get thrown to me, I do not buy.
Exactly.
I just buy those 1%, 0.5% of just absolute home runs.
And the deals that you buy, are they all off market all the time? Is there anything ever on market that you're working with?
So I just bought 2 houses in downtown St. Pete. They were actually on market. They were on the market for about 120 days. They came down each about $120,000 over the past 120 days. They needed new roofs on them, as well as some other work. So me as an investor, I recognize no bank's going to give a loan on that.
Yep.
So there goes your average buyer.
Yep.
So now you're dealing with just investors.
Yep.
Any investor is going to leverage OPM, other people's money, or the bank, because that's just the best for our returns. So I reached out, I noticed it's been on the market for a while. It came down 120,000. These are 2 single families side by side on 2 separate lots. And I said, would you be open to a creative solution? They're down to $329 a pop.
Was this for sale by owner?
No, by an agent.
So you were talking through an agent. Okay.
Yeah, they came down $329 a pop, and I'm very, very bullish on the downtown St. Pete market. So I said, okay, how about this? You want $329 a pop? I'll give you $350 a pop. Give me a 3-year balloon. So on that one, for example, I pay 6% interest only. Give me a 3-year balloon. Now I want another 2-year extension just to insulate myself a little bit more, but I'll make my interest go from 6% to 8% if I have to use that 2-year extension. So that's an example of 2 that I just recently bought that were on market.
What did you have to put down on that?
$20K for the pair.
For both?
Yes.
Each?
No, $20K
20.
total.
Gotcha.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Nice.
And then the rest of it was owner financed.
Yep. So so $700K. He's financing $680 at 6% interest. I have a 3-year balloon. I can extend that to 5 years, but interest goes from 6 to 8.
And so let's talk a little bit about you secure the deal, right? You get it under contract, and then the next step is to obviously make sure that it's cash flowing, right? Yep. So what that system looks like from your perspective of attracting renters, making sure that they're the right people, making sure that it's actually paying on time, that you have somebody managing the property. I know you do a lot of self-management, but whether that's whether you do have, if you mentioned in a couple properties, you have a couple property management companies at 10% that are involved. So what's been your experience like there, and any tips you might share to make that process go smooth for people that are fearful about that whole world, of dealing with nightmares of toilets and tenants and all that kind of stuff?
Oh man, I could go on about nightmares. I've had them. I've had the ones you've probably seen in headlines and worse. But I would say the big part is, once you go through the renovations and stuff, I would say the really, really big part is the screening phase. That's what's going to make or break your relation with the tenant, I would say, and a lot of the times. So I generally look for 3 times income to rent ratio. So if the rent's, example, $1,000, I want to see them bringing at least $3K a month.
Mm-hmm.
You could probably make 2.5x squeeze, but I want to make sure that they're comfortable and they're not skinning themselves. This gives me, more certainty that they'll actually keep paying and stuff like that.
Yep.
And another thing is, if a tenant wants to leave or anything like that, I try to salvage it. I don't, just cut them loose immediately. Try to work out a payment plan or something like that. Because if they leave, guess what? It's going to sit on the market in 2 months. I got to get contractors in there to renovate it. So, versus if you can maybe salvage it, do a payment plan or something like that, your opportunity costs on what you're losing of just kicking them out, probably 5-10K, depending on renovations, lost rent and all that. So I'm a big...
Have you had to go through the eviction process before multiple times?
Oh yeah. I just went through one with an insurance company, actually. You wouldn't guess it was an insurance company, but yeah, their client...
This was a commercial... their client, okay.
Yeah, so their client's house burnt down, so they were responsible for finding him a place to rent until the new house was built. He ended up getting... Everything was fine for first 6 months. He ended up cheating on his wife multiple times. She ended up leaving him, and then he went down a bad path of hard substances, noticeably, very quickly. And ever since then, he was sending me videos of a wood chopping axe, taking it to the kitchen cabinets, just insane stuff, absolutely insane. Actually just got him out last month.
Wow. The stories never end, I'm sure.
Yeah. That one was definitely been the most challenging and most radical one I've dealt with.
But it seems like you take it in stride, right? The reality is there's no perfect business, right? No matter what you're going to be involved with, there's always going to be challenges and opportunities to any business that you're in, right? And so I would imagine from your perspective, you would say that it's completely worth some of the challenges that you deal with and finding good renters and dealing with tenants, and you're going to have your ups and your downs and your great, amazing tenants that always pay early and never have trouble, versus the ones are chopping your kitchens down with axes, right? You're gonna have both, but it's probably worth it at the end of the day. Would you say?
100%. That one, for example, I picked that house up $44K for 2 houses. The one's worth about $250K. The other one $150K. So I already have on that one specifically $200K. I already made an equity on it, minimum. So that insulates me from all the BS that he just did, and also, I think it's a mental shift you have to develop. Getting into this business, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. Yeah. No matter,
accept that it's going to happen.
It's going to happen at some point.
Right.
You just have to educate and do everything you can to minimize when those things happen.
Yeah.
So just coming into the perspective, that's the perspective I like to have, and then just try to make everything positive about it. Yeah, it sucked, but what did I learn from it?
Right.
So that's just generally the perspective I try to take on everything.
Yeah, it's a healthy mindset, I think, to have, in general, or else you can just drive yourself crazy if you get too overly emotional when you deal with those challenges, right? I'm curious, though, from your perspective, Morgan, why do you prefer to self-manage, it seems like, most of your properties as compared to spending the 10% for a property management company to handle most of them all for you and deal with a lot of those issues? Is it just strictly it's not worth that 10% to you, or how do you think about that?
Yeah, that's a great point. So so the properties I have partners with, I've been teaching them how to property manage to free my time up. I do have some where I have a property manager where I pay them 10%, and the other ones I do that I own myself solely, I manage myself. It's not necessarily the ones I manage myself. I pick and choose. Like, I don't hear anything from them. I don't hear a peep. And at the beginning,
so you manage the sweet little church ladies, right?
Exactly, the ones that pay on time, and I don't hear anything. Actually, they pay like a week or two early.
I got you.
Yeah, and granted, I've only been actively in this business 3-4 years. Starting out, I think everyone should, self-manage, learn that, trip and fall, scrape your elbows, learns the ins and outs versus just handing this off to someone else and not learning that part of your business.
Right.
So that's generally why I still manage some, because they're with me since I started and they've been sweethearts. And then the problem ones, I've hired externally for them to go do it.
Makes a lot of sense. Yeah, for sure. What are your leases generally 1 year at a time?
Yeah.
You do 12-month leases?
Yep, I like 1 years.
Okay. And then do you have any I've seen some creative programs out there with even with your tenants where you almost help them on a pathway of being a homeowner. Mm-hmm. It's maybe, what's that? The rent to own type option.
Right.
Right. Do you do anything like that?
I don't. I have some of my friends that do that in markets. I see that more in markets that don't have big appreciation upside.
Yeah.
So to say. I personally don't do that. I would rather have the cash flow and hire externally 8, 10, 12%, and then keep the little appreciation that's on there.
Yeah. Nope, that makes a lot of sense too. When you look at an individual property, do you have a formula in mind of I want to cash flow X amount per unit or per deal?
Yeah. I like to see at least $100 a door.
Okay.
And that's after, 5-10% for CapEx, 5-10% for vacancy, 5-10% for repairs and maintenance, 10% for a property manager, all that baked into it.
Yeah, and that's after debt service.
Yeah.
So just $100 minimum after everything. That's net.
Yep.
Okay,
That's
makes
what
a lot
I
of sense.
like to see.
Yep. And as long as it's, I know some investors that are even okay taking negative cash flow, which I don't understand. I don't get that. To me, it's not a good investment if you're not at least seeing some positive cash flow on it.
I can touch on that. I have bought a few of them like that creatively. Now it's producing about a negative $100 cash flow right now. Mm-hmm. But when I bought that deal, I bought into it with $70K equity. Mm-hmm. So, I'm not getting that $100 or that negative. I'm getting that negative 100. But as soon as I bought that, I got $70K equity.
Yeah.
So
you knew that buffer was there.
There's a little bit of variables there, and I'm fairly confident next year when their lease is up, it's going to be positive.
Gotcha. And so now you mentioned earlier that up to 25 million. So these are obviously bigger, apartment complexes. Is that what you're looking at?
Yeah. Yep. Looking for multifamily, mobile homes, RV, self-storage.
Have you dabbled yet in mobile home parks or self-storage facilities yet?
I don't have any under my belt. A lot of my great partners have tons of experience owning thousands of them. So I have them in my back pocket that I'm leveraging 100%. Cool.
Yeah, a good friend of mine based out of Austin, Texas, his name's Justin Donald. He runs a podcast as well called The Lifestyle Investor, and he has a book out too. You can check it out if you want. But he made his money. He's doing very well off now. He's in the, I guess that'd be 8-figure number, right? So he's up there. But he made a lot of his money through mobile home parks, and so he started in that space. Now he's a little bit more of a, I would say, business tycoon where he just buys underperforming businesses and helps turn them around and goes from there. But his platform is built on creating these business models where but also having enough free time to actually enjoy your life, right?
Yeah.
So it's cool, but he still has a very expansive network and whatnot from on the investment side. So he's got, I think, a lot of people that are purchasing in that same space that you just brought up there. With the up to 25 million in that 100, 200, unit type building type concepts. And location wise, doesn't matter to you, right? Doesn't have to be Tampa Bay necessarily. You're open for whatever.
Single family, I would say yes. When it comes to raising a lot of money like that for multifamily, when you're getting into 7-8 figures, yes, it does matter. I would say I'm really focusing on Sunbelt, red states, because most investors, when you get in that, they're way more sophisticated. They don't want to be in blue states, stuff like that. So a lot of stuff like Florida, Georgia, North Carolina, South Carolina, Texas.
East of the Mississippi and south of the Mason-Dixon line, right?
Yep. Hit it head on.
That's exactly this. I've heard that many, many times. So
I like that one. I'm going to use it.
That makes sense. All right, cool, man. So we don't have a ton of time left, but for people who maybe get to know you a little bit on the personal side, Morgan. So you're a single guy?
I have a girlfriend.
Have a girlfriend?
Yes.
Okay. All right. She's probably happy about all this portfolio building that you're doing, huh?
She's been with me since the trenches.
Yeah, she's seen the early days.
Oh yeah,
Before college, during college.
Yeah, we got together in college, but yeah, she's
cool.
seen a lot of really bad times when trying to build out that portfolio. Wasn't always sunshine and flowers.
I'm sure it wasn't. Has she been involved in the business in any way?
No, I try to keep that separate.
Okay, that makes sense. Do you want a family? Is the goal to have kids one day, or not sure?
I'm sure eventually down the road, but right now, not in the near future.
Time to build your whole legacy first, right?
Yeah, I want to build the legacy, and then after that, I want to build a legacy that my kids could really enjoy. So
I got you.
Right now, when I'm grinding, I want to be present.
I hear you, man. Makes a lot of sense. Couple rapid fire questions, all right? Just for people to get to know you a little bit.
Yeah.
Do you have a favorite book or author or seminar that has made a huge impact on you personally or professionally?
Yeah, that's a great point. I obviously, you mentioned Rich Dad Poor Dad. I think that's the spark that catches everyone immediately. Apart from that, what really, I guess, caught the spark for me was multifamily. David Lindahl. I think he's a great author.
I know David. He does a great job with apartment buildings.
Yep.
Yeah.
You know him personally?
I do. I'm not friends with him, but I met him at an event up in Boston years ago. And so we had a chance to talk for probably 20 minutes. And but I know who he is.
Yeah, he has a lot of great books. I think he writes them where, the average person can digest, doesn't make it too complex.
Yeah.
But yeah, I really like his writing style.
Yeah, he's very good. And I don't know if he's kind of delved out of just apartment buildings, but what I heard him speak about was his apartment building philosophy of investing. And it was very good. It was just laid out very simply and it was easy to follow. So it was actually, I was probably your age when I heard it for the first time, maybe even a little bit younger than you. And that was an eye opener for me for sure. Mm-hmm. That's cool. So small world, man, the contacts that we can have, huh?
Yeah.
Do you have a favorite movie or TV show?
As much as I would like to, I don't really watch TV or movies.
Who's got the time for that nonsense, huh?
Exactly. I'm usually working 6, 7 a.m. to 9, 10 p.m.
Looking for deals?
Yeah.
Is that just internet scouring, or are you out like, driving around pounding pavement?
No. Yeah, that's
all internet, right?
Yeah, internet, inbound funnels. Yeah.
Using ClickFunnels programs and stuff like that to get lead flow coming?
That and just building a lot of networking with wholesalers, stuff like that, getting on buyers lists where deals are just flooding my email versus me going out and looking for them.
Makes a lot of sense. Yeah. So the ideal connection for you would be what? A wholesaler, private, obviously any individual homeowner who might want to sell at a discount would be a good conversation, right?
Yeah.
But if from a strategic networking perspective, would you like to network with wholesalers, with rehabbers, with real estate agents, all of the above? What do you think works best?
I work with a lot of wholesalers.
Okay.
Yeah, they get me a lot of deals.
That makes sense. Yeah. A lot of them are involved in some of the real estate associations around real estate investor associations right here, the RIAs.
Yeah.
Are you a member of any of those?
I was thinking about joining the one down here in Tampa. I need to quit dragging my feet on it and just do it.
Yeah. I was a member for a little while at the TB RIA.
Yeah.
And I think it was S RIA was the other one that I attended for a little while. When I first came down here to Florida, that was my goal and I did wholesale properties. So I was a wholesaler for a little bit. Mm-hmm. It never really was like my main full-time focus. It was more of a side hobby.
Right.
But that was a network that I was playing with for a while.
Right.
Yeah. All right, my man. So let me ask you a couple final things. Well, we'll just go to the last question here. So you mentioned earlier the idea of building up your legacy and building up the brand so your family could enjoy it down the future. So when you think about what you'd want to be most remembered for years from now, hopefully, when you're sitting on that rocking chair and you're able to look back at what you've built, what do you think would matter most to you, Morgan, from a standpoint of your legacy?
What I've done to help those around me, definitely.
Yeah. In what way?
Any way possible, not necessarily financial, but maybe education, helping a younger Morgan out there that's dragging his feet, trying to get the confidence and the courage, maybe a connection that I have that I can help someone. Eventually, I'm sure it'll come where charitable donations, just helping build out, because I come from a very small hometown, like you mentioned. I would really like to start building up stuff there, infrastructure, to have more people on the entrepreneurial path.
Very cool. And I know that's part of the reason why I think your assistant reached out to us to have you on the podcast, was because whether you saw it or he saw it or somebody in your organization saw our show and thought it would be a great platform for you to kind of share some of your insights on what you've been able to do really at a young age. It's been very impressive, and hopefully that does inspire, somebody else out there who's been thinking about getting into investment world of real estate to follow suit and go from there. So we appreciate you being here today. If somebody did want to reach out to you, Morgan, just to pick your brain, maybe even put a deal in front of you, have lunch with you, whatever, just to kind of learn more about your strategy and your plan, what's the best way for someone to reach you?
Yeah, they can reach me on social media, Morgan Ehrenzeller.
You can point it. You can look in that camera there if you want.
Yeah, you can reach me on Instagram, Morgan Ehrenzeller, Facebook, or you can email me, morgan@ehrenzellercapital.com. Generally, I get back to you on any of the social platforms or email.
Cool, man. Awesome. Well, we'll put that contact up on our description as well, so that if somebody wants to reach out to you, they can. But we'll put a bow on this episode with really a challenge that we always leave the audience with, which is to take action, right? Anytime you take some time to listen to this show, whether it's live or whether you're watching on any of our favorite podcast platforms, if you're not taking action with at least one thing that you can move you forward, then you're probably going to forget the majority of what you learned anyway from watching this episode. So we talked about a lot today with Morgan, his initial strategies of how he got started, what he looks for in deals. We talked about creative financing. We talked about property management. We talked about rental tips. There's a lot that we went through. And if this at all interests you in the world of investing, maybe you just need to subscribe to an investing podcast, and start listening to some things to kind of stimulate your thought process. Bigger Pockets has got tons of content for free that anybody can follow and subscribe to and listen. It might not all be the top content, but there's a lot of good content in there if you go through it. Plus, there's so many other people out there that have great stories and great things to share. Morgan, of course, is somebody who seems willing to have a conversation with you as well. Maybe you already know a lot about investing, but you've been on the sidelines, and it's time to kind of dive in and get that first property as an investment under your belt. And maybe this inspired you to do so. But take action. Do something today that's going to move you forward. And if we do that, then, of course, like Morgan said, we're making an impact, and it's worth our time putting this out there. So we will see you on the next episode of Tampa Bay Real Producers. If you don't already subscribe to this podcast, just click the button. That way you're notified every time that a new episode drops. And we will see you on the next one. Later.
Hi, I'm Troy Walseth with Walseth Teams with Keller Williams in Pinellas County, Florida. We are here at a Real Producers event, learning with the top agents in the country about how to succeed in any market. And I love Real Producers because you have an opportunity to talk to some of the top agents in the area, and they always do a great event.